What happens when one of Hollywood's most controversial figures sits down for what was supposed to be a career comeback interview, only to have the host refuse to play along? What you're about to witness is one of the most uncomfortable moments in morning television history. An interview that spiraled so far out of control that it ended with the guest storming off, set in front of millions of viewers. Before we get into this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, telling me what you think about this whole situation. Now, let's get into what actually went down between Kevin Spacey and Michael Strahan on Good Morning America. The tension was immediate. You could see it in the way Spacey settled into his chair, the forced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Michael Strahan had that professional broadcaster expression locked in place. But anyone paying attention could tell this wasn't going to be a typical morning show interview. Strahan opened simply, "Kevin, thank you for being here. What have you been working on lately?" Spacey's response set the tone. "Well, Michael, I appreciate you having me. I've been working on independent films, some theater overseas, staying creative. You know, doing what I've always done, which is act." There was an edge to his voice, a defensiveness that hadn't even been provoked yet. Strahan nodded. "That's good to hear. Now, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't address the elephant in the room. It's been a few years since the allegations. Where are you today with all of that?" And there it was. The question everyone knew was coming. "Where am I?" Spacey's tone hardened. "I was vindicated in court, Michael. I went through a trial. I faced my accusers, and a jury found me not guilty. That's where I am. I'm not sure what else you want me to say." The defensiveness ramped up considerably. "I understand that," Strahan replied, measured but firm. "But I think what people want to know is whether you've reflected on this period, whether you understand why so many people felt the way they did, whether there's been any personal reckoning." You could see Spacey's jaw tighten. "A personal reckoning?" Spacey let out a humorless laugh. "Michael, I've spent years being torn apart in the court of public opinion before I ever had my day in actual court. I've lost my career, my reputation, everything I built over decades. What I've reflected on is how quickly people believe accusations without evidence, how eager they are to destroy someone." Strahan leaned forward. "But Kevin, these weren't random accusations. Multiple people came forward. People who worked with you. Are you saying all of them were lying?" The temperature was rising. "What I'm saying," Spacey's voice sharpened, "is that I was found not guilty in a court of law. In this country, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And I think this interview was supposed to be about my work, about moving forward, not rehashing a trial that's already concluded." "It concluded legally," Strahan countered. "But that doesn't mean the conversation is over. You had one of the most successful careers in Hollywood, and then it all came crashing down. Don't you think people deserve to hear something more than just legal vindication?" Spacey's expression darkened. "What about the pain I've experienced? Being convicted in the media before I ever saw a courtroom. Watching my entire life's work get erased, pulled from streaming platforms. Where's the accountability for that?" His voice was rising, composure cracking. "Kevin, nobody's saying you haven't suffered." Strahan maintained his calm. "But you're talking about your career. The people who came forward were talking about their lives, their trauma. Those are two very different things." "Alleged trauma," Spacey shot back. "That's what you keep missing. These were allegations, and I was cleared. But you're still acting like I'm guilty, like I need to apologize for things I didn't do." He was agitated now, gesturing emphatically. Strahan shook his head. "I'm asking questions that anyone in my position would ask. Questions the audience wants answered. You came on this show voluntarily. You knew we'd talk about this. If you didn't want to address it, why are you here?" "I'm here because I was told this would be about my work, about the future." Spacey's frustration was evident. "I wasn't told I'd be walking into an interrogation." The word hung in the air like an accusation. "Asking about the most significant controversy of your career isn't an interrogation," Strahan replied firmly. "It's journalism. And if you can't handle direct questions about your past, maybe you're not as ready to move forward as you think you are." That line landed hard. "Not ready." Spacey's voice took on a dangerous edge. "I've been ready for years. It's everyone else who won't let me. It's interviewers like you who keep dragging me back, who keep insisting that a not guilty verdict isn't enough." He was leaning forward now, confrontational. "Justice is one thing." Strahan didn't back down. "Public trust is another. You can be found not guilty and still have to earn back people's trust. That's reality, Kevin." Spacey sat back with a bitter smile. "So no matter what a jury says, I'm still guilty in your eyes. In the public's eyes, I'm still expected to grovel, to apologize for things I maintain I didn't do. Is that it?" "What I'm saying," Strahan replied carefully, "is that when multiple people come forward with similar stories, when there's a pattern, people notice. They remember. A not guilty verdict doesn't erase those stories. If you want to rebuild your career, you might need to do more than point to a verdict. I've heard the other side for years." "Michael," Spacey's voice rose, "what I haven't heard is anyone willing to acknowledge that maybe the justice system got it right. Maybe the jury saw the evidence and concluded the accusations didn't hold up. Why is that so hard to accept?" He was getting louder, control slipping. Strahan remained steady, because not guilty doesn't always mean innocent. It means the prosecution couldn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a high bar. A lot of things can be true without meeting that standard. So I'm just supposed to accept that no matter what any court says, I'll always be under suspicion. Spacey's voice dripped with bitterness. I'll always be treated like I'm guilty. Is that my life now? There was genuine anger mixed with desperation. I'm telling you what reality is, Strahan said firmly. You can be angry about it, but that doesn't change it. If you want audiences to accept you again, you're going to have to meet them where they are. Spacey stared at Strahan, and you could see him making a decision. You know what, Michael, I thought coming here might be different. I thought we could talk about the work, about art, but clearly, I was wrong. He was starting to shift, preparing to move. Kevin, we can talk about your work, Strahan said, sensing the shift. But you can't expect to come on national television and not address what everyone's thinking about. Everyone's thinking about it because people like you won't let it go. Spacey fired back. You keep bringing it up. Keep making it the story. I came here in good faith. But this isn't good faith. This is an ambush. An ambush. Strahan's eyebrows raised. Kevin, with all due respect, you knew what this interview was about. Your publicist knew. Your team knew. Nobody ambushed you. Spacey shook his head. A conversation requires good faith. What this is you deciding you're going to get your viral clip by backing me into a corner and demanding I confess to something I didn't do. Nobody's asking you to confess, Strahan said, his voice harder now. But what we are asking for is some level of introspection, some acknowledgement that maybe your behavior over the years made people uncomfortable. Can you acknowledge that? You want me to acknowledge behavior that was never proven. Spacey's voice went up. You want me to validate accusations a jury rejected. That's not introspection, Michael, that's capitulation. That's you wanting me to satisfy a mob that's already decided I'm guilty. Strahan leaned back. You keep talking about the jury, about the verdict. But Kevin, courtrooms have a very specific standard. Beyond a reasonable doubt, that's not the same as saying nothing happened. It just means the legal threshold wasn't met. So what are you saying? Spacey demanded. Are you sitting here on national television saying you think I did these things? It was a challenge, an attempt to put Strahan on the defensive. But Strahan didn't take the bait. I'm saying I believe those people had experiences with you that they found traumatic. I'm saying I believe where there's smoke, there's often fire. And I'm saying that you, acting like you're the victim in all of this, isn't sitting well with people watching right now. Acting like I'm the victim. Spacey stood slightly, then caught himself and sat back down. Michael, I am a victim. Trial by media, guilty until proven innocent. Cancel culture. I was acquitted. The evidence wasn't there. The case fell apart. But you're telling me that doesn't matter, that I should still act guilty anyway. I'm telling you that legal outcomes and moral outcomes aren't always the same thing, Strahan said firmly. People are allowed to look at the totality of circumstances, to consider the number of accusers, to weigh power dynamics, and come to their own conclusions. That's reality. Spacey's hands clenched. The reality is, I was one of the greatest actors of my generation. I won Oscars. I created performances people will remember forever. And all of that has been erased because of accusations that couldn't be proven in court. And the reality those accusers are living with, Strahan interjected, is that they came forward publicly, relived their trauma, only to watch you dismiss everything as lies. Do you have any empathy for that? Empathy. Spacey let out a bitter laugh. You want me to have empathy for people who tried to destroy my life? People who waited years to suddenly remember these alleged incidents, right when it became fashionable to take me down. Strahan's expression hardened. You talk about it becoming fashionable, but what happened was people finally felt safe enough to speak up. The culture changed. That's not a witch hunt, Kevin. That's progress. Progress. Spacey's voice was incredulous. You call destroying someone's career without due process progress. That's mob rule. Michael, that's the worst kind of groupthink. The facts were presented in court, Strahan countered. A jury heard them, and while they found reasonable doubt, that doesn't mean nothing happened. You keep conflating not guilty with innocent. Surely you're smart enough to understand that distinction. The line clearly stung. Spacey's face flushed. Don't condescend to me. I understand perfectly well. What I don't understand is why I'm expected to act guilty when I was found not guilty. Why I'm supposed to apologize for things I maintain never happened. Because maybe, Strahan said slowly, deliberately, some part of you knows that even if you didn't break any laws, your behavior wasn't okay. Maybe you made people uncomfortable. Maybe you crossed lines. And maybe instead of hiding behind a verdict, you could actually own that. Spacey stood up. This time, he didn't sit back down. I'm not hiding behind anything. I faced my accusers in court. I testified. I was cleared. But apparently that's not enough. You want blood. You want me to destroy myself on television. Sit down, Kevin Strahan said firmly. We're not done here. Oh, we're done, Spacey said, voice shaking with anger. We're absolutely done. I came here thinking I could have an honest conversation about my work. Instead, I walked into a prosecution. Well, I already had my trial, Michael, and I won. So you'll have to excuse me if I don't feel the need to go through another one. Strahan stood as well. You didn't win, Kevin. The prosecution lost. There's a difference. And if you can't see that, if you can't understand why people still have questions, then maybe you're not ready to come back. My career didn't take a hit, Spacey said, voice rising. My career was assassinated. There's a difference. And I don't need more time to think about it. I've had nothing but time. Time to watch everything I built get torn down because of allegations that fell apart under scrutiny. They didn't fall apart, Strahan shot back. The legal standard wasn't met. That's different, and maybe if you spent less time feeling sorry for yourself and more time trying to understand why people reacted the way they did, you'd be in a better place. But instead, you're acting like you're the only victim here. Spacey's face was red. I'm stating facts. I was found not guilty. My career was destroyed. I've been treated as guilty despite being cleared by a jury. Those are the facts, Michael. And here's another fact, Strahan said, voice cutting. Multiple people came forward with similar stories. Multiple people described a pattern. That's also a fact. At some point, you have to ask yourself why so many different people would say similar things. You have to ask yourself what your role was. I know my role, Spacey said coldly. My role was being successful, being talented, being at the top. And that made me a target. That made me someone people could take down to make a name for themselves. Strahan shook his head with something like disgust. You really believe that? You really think this was all just people trying to take down a successful man? You can't conceive of any other possibility. I know what I did and didn't do, Spacey said, and a jury agreed with me. So forgive me if I don't accept your moral judgment. I've been through hell and back, and I'm still standing. And I'm not going to apologize for that. Nobody's asking you to apologize for still standing, Strahan said. We're asking you to show some humanity, some recognition that other people were affected too. But clearly, that's too much to ask. Spacey started removing his microphone. You know what the saddest part is? I actually respected you. I thought you were a good broadcaster, someone with integrity. But this showed me exactly who you are. You're just another person who decided I was guilty and then worked backward. Well, enjoy your viral moment. I hope it was worth it. Kevin, if you walk off this set right now, Strahan said steadily, you're proving everyone right. You're proving you can't handle accountability, that you can't face difficult questions. Is that really what you want? Spacey paused, hand on his microphone pack. For just a moment, it looked like he might reconsider. But then, his expression hardened. What I want is to be treated fairly. What I want is for a not guilty verdict to actually mean something. And clearly, I'm not going to get that here. So yes, Michael, I'm walking off. And I'm walking off with my head held high, because I know the truth. Strahan took a step forward. The truth? Kevin, you had multiple opportunities to show some growth, some self-awareness, and you chose to be defensive instead. You chose to play the victim card. Spacey had fully disconnected his microphone now, the wire hanging loose. My truth is that I'm innocent. I was cleared by a jury, and I don't owe you a performance of guilt just to make people feel better. His voice was cold, final. This isn't about a performance, Strahan said, following as Spacey moved away. This is about basic human decency. This is about recognizing that your actions affected real people. But you can't even do that much. Spacey turned back, barely containing his rage. You want me to recognize something that didn't happen the way they claimed? You want me to validate a false narrative? I won't do it, Michael. I won't lie to satisfy your sense of justice. I'm defending the people who came forward. Strahan's voice rose. I'm defending the idea that when multiple people tell similar stories, we should listen. I'm defending accountability, especially for powerful people like you. Accountability for what? Spacey shouted. Things I didn't do. Things that couldn't be proven. You're asking me to be accountable for other people's perceptions. That's absurdity. The crew had gone silent. Cameras rolling. Strahan stood his ground. You still don't get it, Strahan said, quieter, but more powerful. This isn't about the legal standard. This is about you considering that maybe you hurt people, that maybe you made choices that affected others. That's all anyone is asking for. Just that tiny bit of humility. Spacey laughed without humor. Humility. I've been humiliated for years. I've lost everything I worked for. And now, you want more humility. How much more do I have to lose? It's not about losing, Strahan said. It's about learning. But you can't do that if you refuse to consider that you might have been wrong about something. You're so focused on being vindicated that you can't see anything else. Spacey started walking toward the exit, movements sharp. I see perfectly clearly. I see a media that decided I was guilty before any trial. I see an industry that abandoned me. I see people like you who would rather chase ratings than report fairly. Strahan called after him. Kevin, this is your last chance. You can walk off and become a cautionary tale, or sit back down and have a real conversation. What's it going to be? Spacey stopped at the edge of the set, back to Strahan. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, without turning, he spoke. I already am a cautionary tale, Michael. about what happens when accusations become convictions without evidence, about mob mentality. You're making yourself a cautionary tale, Strahan said. Right now, you're showing everyone watching exactly who you are. Spacey turned back, something haunting in his expression. Maybe I am showing everyone who I am. I'm someone who refuses to lie. I'm someone who refuses to confess to things I didn't do. I'm someone who stands by the truth, even when it costs me everything. If that makes me the villain, so be it. It's not my story, Strahan said. It's yours. And you're writing the ending right now. Spacey shook his head. No, Michael, you wrote the ending when you decided what this interview was going to be. You wrote it when you chose judgment over journalism. I'm just refusing to play along. And with that, he walked off the set, his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. Strahan stood there, watching him go, then turned to the cameras. His expression was complicated, frustration mixed with sadness. Well, he said steadily, I think that speaks for itself. We tried to have a conversation about accountability and growth, but that conversation can't happen if one person refuses to participate. The camera lingered, then cut to commercial. The damage was done. The interview that was supposed to mark Kevin Spacey's return had become a spectacle of defensiveness and denial. What you just witnessed was the collapse of what could have been redemptive. Instead of showing growth, Spacey doubled down on victory. He positioned himself as the wronged party, cleared by a jury but condemned by public opinion. And he validated every concern about whether he understood the gravity of the allegations. The interview raises questions about accountability, about what we owe to accusers, about the gap between legal innocence and moral responsibility. Spacey is legally not guilty. A jury decided that, but as Strahan pointed out, legal vindication doesn't automatically mean public rehabilitation. It doesn't erase the stories told, the patterns described. What made this devastating was Spacey's inability to meet the moment. He could have expressed empathy without admitting guilt. He could have acknowledged that perhaps his behavior wasn't always appropriate. He could have shown growth. But he treated every question as an attack. Strahan handled it with professionalism. He asked tough but fair questions. He pushed back without ambushing. Everything was reasonable, predictable, and Spacey's reaction told us everything. He's not ready to face scrutiny, not ready to engage with critics, not ready to rebuild trust. The walk-off confirmed what many suspected, that Spacey sees himself as above this questioning, that his talent and legal vindication should be enough. But they're not. People want to see remorse, understanding of power dynamics, someone who learned from adversity, not someone bitter and defensive. This was supposed to be his big moment. His team prepared him, yet when faced with fair questions, he crumbled. He revealed that he fundamentally believes he's the victim. That attitude is fatal to any comeback attempt. This footage will be everywhere, dissected endlessly. It's another chapter in the debate about cancel culture, due process, and redemption. But one thing is certain, this didn't help him. If anything, it destroyed any hope of returning to mainstream entertainment. Audiences saw a man convinced he had nothing to learn. The industry is watching. Does a not guilty verdict entitle someone to a clean slate? What do we owe to accusers whose cases didn't meet the legal standard? Questions without easy answers. But this interview demonstrated that legal vindication alone isn't enough. The court of public opinion operates on different rules. Kevin Spacey either doesn't understand that or refuses to accept it. Either way, his walk-off will be remembered not as redemption, but as defiance in the face of accountability. So, what do you think? Was Strahan too hard on Spacey, or was he asking the right questions? Does a not guilty verdict mean we should give someone a second chance? Or are there some situations where public trust can't be rebuilt? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure you subscribe, because we're going to be covering the fallout from this interview as it develops.